Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that we do in organizational psychology is to understand like the workers within the system. And I spent like a whole semester one time having all my lab try to figure out how to explain the field to other people, the elevator pitch thing, because
Mhm.
it gets pretty complicated. The field comes from an industrial basis in manufacturing and an organizational response to humans in the workplace, sort of in the 60s, in terms of thinking about the name, and we won't change it to work psychology like they do in Europe because people are wedded to the name. But what we came up with is the thing that we do best is measure people on things relevant to the workplace. And so what I tell people is if you want a customized solution to your people challenges, you have to be able to measure them.
Uh-huh.
And that includes their knowledge, skills, abilities, desires, needs, moods, career trajectory, hopes, engagement, all these things. And so without that measurement, all you're doing is saying something worked for Google, and benchmarking off that. But you don't have a sense of whether the solution would actually fit your goals for performance and well-being within your organization for the people that you have. And so that measurement piece is really the crux of if you want to change something about your company, it makes sense to actually see the impact of that change on the people or to find out if they even want it.
Mm.
A lot of times the people in charge design companies that they would want, but often the rest of the people in the company aren't the same as them in terms of values, needs, personality. And so you end up creating these misfits unintentionally without measurement.
Wow. Wow. Um, is it along those lines, is it possible to tell us a bit about the kinds of tools that industrial organizational psychologists use for measurement, or perhaps some of the ones that are most applicable to the research in your lab as a professor?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the funnest parts of the job is like making new tools. So we have this tension where if you have an organizational psychology company, a lot of times the intellectual property and really what gives you a competitive advantage is a tool you own and have trademarked, and you kind of want to keep it safe or protected. So I
Mhm.
did some research using like the Gallup organizations like Q12 measure of employee engagement once in grad school, and then I just sort of like emailed them and said like, could I publish this? And they said only if it will further the interest of the measure. And I was just showing that most of the measures covered the same thing, and so I'm like, well, it won't, so never mind. But I
Yeah.
think that's the issue. And so there are personality measures, values measures, trait measures that really try to measure stable things about individuals. And we use those to either select them into roles they would fit with or give them advice on where they would thrive. Some other things like employee engagement, perceived organizational justice, um, you know, uh, reflections on what you would want most from a benefits policy. Those can either be sort of like custom made tools that people sort of create, they're just asking the questions, or pulling some things from the academic literature. And then the one thing you'll hear from all organizational psychologists is it all starts with job analysis. So if you don't actually know what the job requires, then you can't fit people to it. But I will say one big challenge in that space is that most people don't come in job description shaped bundles. And so you say, hey, I want to hire someone for this, but no one's going to be a perfect fit or
Yeah.
stay a perfect fit. And so I'm a big advocate of thinking about hiring people for the things that aren't likely to change as opposed to things that are easy to change. And so you don't really want to hire someone from a skill they can pick up in a week. If you can hire someone for a value that aligns with your company, that means that they're going to stay and contribute to the other pieces too. So the cool thing about it is there's just a never-ending sort of subset of tools that I already create that you can use, or tools that you can create to try and do this productive fit thing within organizations.
That's pretty fascinating, and I'd imagine it'll be a fascinating concept for many of our viewers and listeners, especially those who aren't steeped in the field or to the degree that you are.